Thank you so very much for having me here. It's wonderful to be invited, and specifically to be invited to share my personal story and how that relates to the advocacy work that I've been doing for mental health within academia. So it begins in 2009. 2009 for me was a fantastic year. After a whirlwind tour of 4 top research universities, I had chosen to do my PhD in molecular and cell biology at UC Berkeley. It was a large umbrella program with 5 different divisions, ranging from biochemistry to neuroscience. I was going to have 55 incoming classmates who I was relieved to discover were all instant friends. They were smart, so nerdy for science, and like me, had chosen Berkeley not only because of the amazing research, but also because there were so many other wonderful things to do in the Bay Area, and the other students there seemed genuinely happy. I was literally singing California songs at the top of my lungs the entire way out there in the car, driving from Arizona. When I got there, I unpacked my tiny apartment, went and got my Cal ID card, and then booked an appointment with a psychiatrist. You see, I have bipolar disorder, and depression and anxiety in my family. And during undergrad, I was showing more and more signs of having developed bipolar disorder myself. In fact, I was most certainly manic during most of my interviews. While exciting to most people, I didn't sleep almost at all. I stayed out the latest of any recruit and was still awake and alert and fresh and totally on it for my interviews all day. I wasn't the least bit intimidated by the faculty and spoke confidently and probably a little too enthusiastically about my undergrad research. My mind was quick, and I was both intense and creative when discussing their research too. Did this work to my benefit? In some cases, clearly yes, I got into Berkeley. And in others, I'm sure no. What I was sure about was that I was excited to be at Berkeley, and I needed to fortify my seawall against the inevitable crushing waves of manic and depressive episodes that I knew high stress situations can trigger with mood disorders. I had never required hospitalization or medication to resolve prior episodes, but I had been studying psychology and reading about these illnesses for over 7 years already at that point. And I knew that I was about to voluntarily embark on some of the hardest 6 years of my life. I wanted to be prepared, and seeking professional help was first on my list. But that wasn't all I did. I established care with a psychiatrist. I made friends in my grad program and disclosed to those that became closest and I trusted, as well as talked to certain family members and my best friends from home. And I gave them all permission to discuss my situation with each other. And if any of them became worried, they could talk to each other and talk to me. Once I joined a lab, actually, I joined 2. I hesitated to disclose to my PIs, but one point second year, it became inevitable, unavoidable. During one of my depressive episodes, when I couldn't read more than a sentence at a time and was horribly delinquent on agreed upon deadlines for writing up a manuscript, I set up an appointment to reveal my condition to one of my mentors. Disclosing to them was terrifying, but when I did, they were incredibly supportive and really appreciated all of the preventative steps I had taken. I gave them my parents' information and permission to contact them as well if I ever fell off the map again or showed other concerning behavior. In the end, I think I did a pretty good job during grad school, but it always kind of came in waves. You'd have to ask my mentors, but based on their professional letters of recommendation that got me interviews with many prestigious labs and ultimately my Hopkins postdoc, I guess they thought I did okay. My paper from grad school was well cited and even covered by mainstream media. But the thing is, while I was in grad school, I cycled the entire time, pretty much unchecked. And it was more challenging than I can properly convey in this setting. You might be thinking to yourself, but you had a psychiatrist. You set up a support network. You knew about the illness. What happened? You are more prepared than most. Yes. But I never went back to that psychiatrist. See, one of the most horrible things about mental illness is that a lot of times the illness itself makes it challenging to get the care you need when you need it. Even when you did all the right things, when you were doing okay, even when you have a supportive network of loving friends and family, even when ad infinitum, it's hard. I did go see a psychologist for a lengthy period of time during third and fourth year, but not for my bipolar disorder. You see, I was bullied relentlessly in one of my labs, starting the day I picked my project and joined the lab. I developed post-traumatic stress disorder type symptoms, hypervigilance, extreme avoidance behavior, rumination, anxiety attacks, all of which worsened my mood disorder. But another one of the hardest things about mental health struggles is the fact that there is a lot of comorbidity or overlap and bidirectional influence of supposedly discrete diseases. The fact is that a lot of people experience varying levels of anxiety, depression, stress response, and various diagnosable symptoms and disorders. And they are all playing into you, your genetics, your coping mechanisms, your knowledge, your environment, and your society. It's hard to disentangle, and even harder with mental illnesses because they are almost all laden with extreme stigma that create massive barriers to seeking professional and social support. I, and honestly my psychologist, could only deal with one thing at a time, even though everything was happening at once, all to the same person. This entire time during grad school, well into my fifth year, my personal mental health journey was just that, personal. A very select few people knew anything about my struggles and the care I was receiving, let alone my diagnosis. As you may know, bipolar disorder is one of the official severe mental illnesses. And as it turns out, I have rapid cycling bipolar 1, which is, according to the medical texts, associated with some of the worst outcomes. But why is bipolar disorder so different from the fact that I am 5'9" or that I have asthma and allergies? My height and my immune disorders are equally influenced by biology and environment. Both asthma and bipolar disorder are episodic and treatable. Height, asthma, and bipolar disorder are all highly polygenic and developmentally dependent on environmental factors. So why are they so different? The answer is obvious: stigma. I told as few people as possible during most of grad school because I feared their judgment, their disregard, their labeling me as broken or crazy or not smart enough or lazy. Even those that I had very good reason to believe would be supportive or understanding, including my other mentor, I didn't tell unless absolutely necessary. That was the professional thing to do, right? My 5th year in grad school changed that forever. In 2013, one of my friends and classmates died due to depression and suicide. In fact, there was a suicide at every level of just our department that year. We lost a faculty member, a postdoc, and an undergrad too. It's too difficult to describe the impact of losing someone to suicide, so I'm not going to try. As my classmates and I were trying to find our bearings and figure out how to deal with the loss of our friend and colleague, we got to talking, and we discovered that despite all of us being so close in so many ways and spending so much time together, most of us were struggling. Most of us had seen counselors, some of us for very long periods of time, and none of us had told each other. Everyone kept it a secret. Everyone hid it as best they possibly could. It was because of this revelation that a group of us founded what we called the MCB Grad Network and began in our own way to try to address this toxic cloud of silence about mental health struggles, extremely common stressors in grad school, and began to dismantle the stigma around suffering from and seeking help for the most critical thing for success in graduate school, our minds. It's a pretty surreal experience. At times, being a mental health researcher, struggling with my own lived experience, and having suffered terrible loss due to mental illness. You see, a few months after we founded the MCB Grad Network and had planned our first event aimed at giving third years a serious heads up about what they were about to face, we prepared an introductory statement that members of the MCB Grad Network were going to present at all the faculty meetings, asking faculty to support their students attending our events and why. To this day, I viscerally remember walking down the hall to the meeting and listening to my dad on the phone tell me that my cousin was in the hospital and had barely survived a suicide attempt. I was so thankful that we had already planned to have 2 of us at each of the faculty meetings, because there was no way I was going to be able to keep it together to deliver that message. My cousin died 2 years later after several more attempts. And 14 months after that, one of my closest friends and colleagues from Berkeley and one of the co-founders of the MCB Grad Network, Dr. Chris Alvaro, had died by suicide as well. After my cousin died, I fell into a deep and terrifying depressive episode. But after losing Chris, I reached out to my psychiatrist colleague and got a referral to see a psychiatric resident at Hopkins, the third highest ranked residency program in the US. And I also joined forces with a slew of absolutely incredible graduate students at Hopkins and created another grad network. This time it was the School of Public Health Mental Health Grad Network. And over the last 2 years, we worked with students, faculty, wellness, and mental health care staff and administrators to create some truly spectacular change. We've developed mental health literacy talks, tools for supporting trainee mental health workshops, and anti-stigma films interviewing faculty, talking about their own lived experience with mental health struggles. I've delivered these at UC Berkeley, Johns Hopkins, Notre Dame, University of Arizona, and even Europe. The need is great, but my desire to make positive change is greater. Graduate students have 8 times higher rates of severe depression and anxiety than the general population. Those with higher IQ report higher rates of mood disorders and are less likely to seek treatment. And mood disorders underlie 80 to 90% of all suicides. A comparison I like to make is between elite athletes and academics. The best athletes in the world train incredibly hard. They give their all to achieve peak performance in their field. But when there's an injury, even the smallest one, the response is to address it immediately, even courtside, for all the world to see. The response to address it is immediate. We are privileged to be able to train our minds at the highest levels as scientists and academics. Yet when our minds, the most critical instrument for our work, is injured or strained, we tend to just keep doing what we're doing. This is no longer acceptable. We've now founded a nonprofit to focus on mental health in academia called Dragonfly Mental Health. We've named it and chosen the logo in honor of my friend Chris Alvaro. While we were in grad school, they designed and tattooed this dragonfly on their wrist, which represented transformation, hope, and wisdom. For us, it'll be a constant reminder of why we are doing what we're doing. We are by academics, for academics. We're global, inclusive, and multidisciplinary. And we aim to accelerate the evidence-based research, consulting services, and create systemic change in academia for mental health. Right now we have 70 volunteers from 14 different countries, over 20 different universities, and more than 20 disciplines. And we're working together as a global consortium for academic mental health to conduct independent research, create systemic change, bring academics together through networking in Dragonfly Cafe, and deliver on-campus events and interventions. We welcome you to contact us or visit our website to learn more, invite us to your campus, or join us in networking through Dragonfly Cafe. I'm happy to answer questions after the next speaker as well.